All right, on to example number 4. Again, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to see, okay, I've got a trinomial here. I'm going to make it into 2 binomials. Okay, and we're looking for 2 numbers. Now, we know these first terms here are k's, k and k, but we're looking for 2 numbers that we're going to put in the first and the second binomials right here. Now, our numbers have to do 2 things. First of all, they've got to multiply to this last number. They've got to multiply to the negative 64. They've also got to add to 12. So 64 is a little bigger number. If you've got a calculator, it's no harder. If you don't, you might want to go grab you one. Okay, but all we're going to do here is we're going to write down all of the numbers that multiply to 64 without a factor chart. Basically, you're making your own factor chart. Okay, so I always start with 1. 1 times 64 is 64. Then I take my calculator and I do 64 divided by 2. So I have a 32. I know it divides by 2. I try 3. 64 divides by 3, and it does not because it says 21.33333. So skip that one. Don't write that down, but try 4. 64 divided by 4 is 16. Okay, we just keep going. 64 divided by 5, decimal. 64 divided by 6, decimal. 64 divided by 7, decimal. 64 divided by 8 is 8. So we've also got 8 times 8. Now, once you get back to these numbers, see how they're slowly getting closer and closer together. Once you get to this next one, since those are doubles, you're done. Those are the only 4 ways that we can multiply numbers together to get 64. Okay, so we've got it all factored, but now not only do our numbers have to multiply to this negative 64, but they've got to add or combine to this negative 12. Now remember, if you've got a negative number there, you're going to have different signs here. One's going to be a positive, one's going to be a negative, and that means that they've got to, instead of subtracting or adding to 12, they really subtract to 12. So look up here and find 2 that subtract to 12. Well, 4 and 16. 16 subtract 4 is 12. So those are 2 numbers. But when we look back up here, notice they've got to combine to a negative 12. So our bigger number wants to have that same sign. So that 16 is going to be negative, and then the 4 will be positive right there. Okay, again, when we check it, we've got our k times k gives us k squared. 4k minus 16k, that'll give us that negative 12k. And then negative 16 times 4 gives us the negative 64. So we're done. Good job. All right, this is a fun one. This is a nice and easy one because when I go to do my binomials here, I know my numbers have to multiply to 1. Well, the only numbers to multiply to 1 are 1 and 1. Okay, so we can just go ahead and fill in. Remember, y's are going to be in the first place. Those are the only numbers to multiply to 1. Luckily, they also add to 2. But then just look at the signs. They've got to be the same sign. So these were all different because this was a subtract. Oh, those are the same. But these are both going to just be a positive 1 right there. And that is your final answer. You're done there. All right, this next example number 6, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to try and find 2 numbers that multiply to this negative 3. So the only numbers that multiply to 3 are 1 and 3. So we're going to go ahead and fill in. Remember, our first terms here have to multiply to this a squared. So they're going to be a times a. Now my last numbers here have to multiply to 3. So we're going to put a 1 and a 3 right here. But notice they multiply to a negative 3. That means that we've got different signs. One's going to be positive, one's going to be negative. Be careful. It does matter where your positive and negative go to because they've got to add or combine to a negative 2. Okay, so your bigger number needs to have that sign. So that 3 is going to be negative, and that leaves that 1 to be a positive number. And that's us finished with that example 2. We'll try the last 3 examples in our next video.